This is the IOA Podcast, a space for truth, tenderness, and becoming whole, one breath at a time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the IOA Podcast. I am Dr. Malika, and I am your host in this space that has been created for rooted healing, for honest reflection, and collective care. What we love to say over here in this space is that we are healing loudly and living softly. So, if you've been here for the first part of this current season, which is season number 2, then you know where we started and what we have been talking about so far. Before we get into doing a rundown really quickly, I want to start with some housekeeping things because it's important for us to drive the algorithm now as we start into this episode. So remember, we need your help. We need you to like, we need you to subscribe, we need you to share the episode so that other people will be able to know what we are doing, can join the conversation, and can interact with what we are talking about. This is really important. Um, I often say that the work that we do in this space is work that is priceless, and we want to allow other people to join us in this journey so that they have the opportunity to heal spaces that they may have been ignoring or didn't have the tools to deal with. We are giving them the tools to be able to step into that and really do some of this root work. I also want this to be shared with people that you know need the resource. So they vocalize that they need help but don't know where to start. This could be the starting point. So you want to make sure that you get that to them. So like, share, subscribe. We are on the YouTube, where if you want to watch visually the episodes, you can get us every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern. You can also find us on Apple Podcast. You can find us on Spotify. We are now also on iHeartRadio. So we are really getting out there and we are doing more to extend what we are doing. I don't want to take for granted our listeners that we have on WDJY. They are super important. And I'm super excited to continue to be delivering this message on the airways in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. And so, shout out to all of our WDJY listeners. For those of you who are listening, we are excited to have you continue to be on this journey. We will talk about the special giveaway for the WDJY listeners a little bit later in the episode. So now let's get into just kind of a quick recap of what we've talked about so far in season number 2. We started out with the first episode of this season, which was episode number 21, with talking about how to begin again after dealing with burnout, after dealing with grief or disappointment. In episode 22, we talked about why community care matters more than ever in these times. We're dealing in times that are very isolated. And so this was really important for us to be able to understand how important we need to lean into community care because it's an important resource that we have. Today, we're going to kind of stay in that same vein. We're going to stay with that same thread of healing, but we're going to turn it towards something that many of us interact with every single day, but we're not fully noticing what it is costing us with this interaction. I am talking about social media. Social media is not just a tool that we use for entertainment or marketing or a place where we post updates and clips and we curate this picture of joy, right? We're talking about what it does to our bodies, what it does to our minds, our sense of self-worth. We are digging into the impacts that it can have and make sure that we are aware of what is coming our way. I want to say from the beginning of this episode to make sure that it is clear that this is not going to be a simple phones are bad, social media isn't good for you, don't do it. It's not that, because that would be shallow. That would honestly be too easy. It doesn't allow you to do the real work. Many of us use social media for legitimate purposes. We use it for our businesses, we use it for work. We stay connected to people that don't live in our general area. We use it as a way to find languages. Some of us have learned languages by being on social media. We've gotten resources. It helped us organize. It helped us build community or inspiration. Some of us have found that sense of validation that we've needed through it. So this is not pretending that it's not a complex tool and a resource. This is acknowledging is the truth about the resource because that is important. We have to talk about what it's doing to our nervous systems. What happens when our system is constantly in that scroll? What does it do to us? We're going to talk about that. What is it doing to our bodies to be under this amount of stimulation consistently and constantly? All this comparison that's happening, this sense of urgency and the visual judgment that comes with being on social media. What it is doing to the mirror that we look in that is important to us and the stories that we're telling ourselves because of it. When we filter ourselves and our identity and our existence through the likes, the visibility, the aesthetics, and the performance and pressure that comes with social media. Why do we constantly say we're okay or try to look okay when we are not okay? That's where we're going today. That's how we're digging into this today. This episode is very much anchored in the book, in the concept or the chapter that deals with the body, the chapter that deals with the mirror, and the disruption. All of these three things are going to be covered in today's episode. To dig deeper into it, obviously, you need to get your copy of Rooted in Resilience. And so this is going to be a map that I think is going to be helpful, not just to deal with social media, because it's not just about the medium, it's about the mind issue, how we're processing things and how we're taking care of ourselves. It's not just about our attention span, right? Not the psychology in the abstract. We're embodying a lot of the things that are happening in this space. And we don't even realize that it's getting into the way we breathe. It's getting into our skin, our posture, our ability to sleep, how we talk to ourselves with our self talk, and that constant pressure to be readable, desirable, informed, responsive, and visible all at the same time. All right. So I want us to talk from that space. I want us to talk about why this matters. And I want us to dig deeper into what this digital life is doing to us beneath the surface, how the comparison culture is actually reshaping our feelings of self worth, what it might mean to basically reclaim a more humane relationship with our bodies and our attention span. So, as always, remember again that if this episode is meeting you where you are, you need to subscribe so that you can get more of this information. Share it with somebody that you love. Stay with me to the end because I promise you, I will give you not just reflection on the issue, but practices that you can put into place. So, let's take a break and then let's get into digging into this a little bit deeper. We'll be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone, to the episode. I am super excited for us to dig a little bit deeper into this because I feel like this is insightful. This conversation is not one that we're going to be having in a vacuum. I want you to know that this is happening at a moment when the public debate around social media has really become one that's harder for us to ignore. The fact is that the 2026 World Happiness Report has reported that young people in North America and Western Europe are much less happy than they were 15 years ago. And what they have looked at is it places the decline in the happiness quotient juxtaposed against when social media use really rose sharply. So one of the report's featured essays goes a little bit further into detail and it argues that taken together, the evidence is now showing that major social media platforms are not, number one, reasonably safe for children and adolescents. And that is a whole side conversation. Um, Although there are age limits, we know that they're not adhered to the way that they need to be adhered to. The US Surgeon General advisory still says that we cannot give a conclusion definitively on social media's impact on whether or not it's sufficiently safe for children and adolescents. What it does note is that about a third of teens report using it almost constantly, and that's more than 3 hours a day. And that use is linked with about double the amount of risk for mental health problems, such as things like depression and anxiety symptoms. And that is amongst the adolescents that they surveyed, they found this in 46% of them. So they're saying basically that the social media is making them feel worse about their body image. And then at the same time, you have the legal and policy fighting that is escalating on the social media platforms. We're seeing this every day. In March of this year, the US Appeals Court heard arguments over whether or not Florida and Georgia law that's aimed at restricting children's access to social media, including the age verification and the parental consent requirements, right? Outside of the country, in the country of France, their Senate has been debating a law to basically ban social media access for children under the age of 15. Australia has already enforced a ban, and theirs is 16 and under are banned from using it, which is much more aggressive. And there are multiple governments in other countries that are looking at age checking systems and restrictions on their own. So when I'm talking to you about this issue, it is really a significant one. So this episode is basically telling you that our body level is being sacrificed. Our health physically is being sacrificed because of a digital life that some are finding hard to ignore. And it's not an exaggeration. This is, live public health, legal, cultural argument that is happening in real time around us. So here's where I want to slow the conversation down a little bit, because the policy debates tend to focus on children, right? All of these stats and statistics that I gave you focused on children's health. The platforms, the lawmakers, the lawsuits, right? All of that stuff matters. But I want us to bring it back to the lived experience and the things that we as adults are also carrying. What does it feel like in your body when you wake up and reach for your phone before you've even met with your own thoughts for the day? Literally, this is the first thing that you do. What happens to your spirit when the first mirror that you look into each day is not the bathroom mirror, but it's the algorithm in your social media accounts? What happens when your attention is constantly interrupted by urgency, beauty, crisis, outrage, aspirations, the violence, the marketing, people's performance, and other people's lives? Most people do not experience this as one dramatic breakdown. What they're actually experiencing is a cumulative effect of all of these things. A little more tension here, a little less quiet there, a little more self judgment is now piled on the plate, a little more nervous system activation, a little more difficulty being present in your own actual real life. That is why I think we have to stop talking about social media only as content and start talking about it as climate. Climate gets into everything. It shapes mood, expectations, self talk, the speed of our bodies, whether we rest, or even if rest is possible. For Black people, especially Black women, there is another layer here. We are not entering these digital spaces as neutral bodies. We, unfortunately, are entering them in bodies that have already been watched. Our bodies have been judged, desired, policed, fetishized, misread. It's just too much. So the digital gaze is not starting from scratch when it comes to Black women. It's basically landing on top of the history that is already there. So that is part of what makes this conversation, in my opinion, so very important, because some of what social media activates is not new pain. It's old pain, but they're using a new delivery system in order to do it. So we are going to take a break. And when we come back, we are going to continue to go a little bit deeper into this episode We will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone, to the episode. We are going to get into talking about the body and the disruption. All right. So, this is probably one of the most important concepts that I talk about in the book. There's a line in Rooted in Resilience that talks about the fact that capitalism did not just shape our economy, it actually shaped our nervous systems. I want us to sit with that for a minute because that sentence explains so much more about what social media feels like and the reason why it feels the way it feels. So, again, capitalism did not just shape our economy, it shaped our nervous systems. The problem is not that it's just distracting us. The problem is that these platforms are built inside of an economy of extraction. They're designed to keep you moving, reacting, refreshing, comparing, consuming, and then rinse and repeat. You are dealing with not just your time going away, you are now training your body into a very particular type of rhythm. So your rhythm may be urgency, your rhythm may be hypervigilance, your rhythm may be fragmented attention span, it may be reward seeking. Then it may get into physical things. It may be shallow breathing, restlessness. And when that becomes your baseline, stillness starts to feel unfamiliar to you. Silence sounds uncomfortable. It's something that you cannot sit in. And slowness starts to feel unproductive. You may even start interpreting your own body's need for pause as you being lazy. And we've talked about that in season 1. What really is happening is your system has been conditioned to stay activated. That is disruption. This disruption is not just a concept in my book, it is embodied. The chapter says that the systems of domination that are taught to us to believe our value lies in what we can produce rather than who we are is what social media is basically fit onto. Social media fits that logic. Even when you're not explicitly selling anything, there's often pressure to present, to perform, to optimize, to explain, react, and package yourself. The platform becomes another place where worth gets tied to output. Then, now we add our bodies into the equation. So, in the chapter on the body, the book is clear. The Black body has been treated as a utility. It's been scrutinized, medicalized, reduced when it should have been understood as the sacred vessel that it is, as the reservoir of memory, and as something that's worthy of reconnection. This is basically saying that return to the body is fundamental in the work that we're doing when we want to remember wholeness after we've been disconnected. So that matters here because think about scrolling often pulls us away from our bodies. We're often not noticing our hunger cues. We're not paying attention to when we're tired and fatigued. We are not noticing the tension in our shoulders, etc., that exists. You may not even notice that you have been sitting in a stress posture for an hour. Imagine that. You're not noticing that what you're calling just tired is actually overstimulation. You may be able to notice that or not notice that your body has basically become the parking lot for things that you did not process while you were busy taking in everybody else's life. Your body is keeping score, and it's keeping score in very ordinary ways. Here's some of the ways that it does it. Are you having trouble sleeping? Are you having difficulty with concentrating? Is there headaches, tight jaw? Any of these things, doom scrolling has now become a nervous habit that you do. Do you feel weirdly depleted after being online, even if you did it and it wasn't anything hard or negative that you were taking in? Checking your phone when you are anxious will make you feel more anxious because you checked it. That's the cycle. That may be where some of us are at. And what makes this deceptive is we often view it as something that's passive. It can look like rest. It can look like I'm just winding down, but the body may be doing the exact opposite of winding down. It may be bracing, absorbing, comparing, reacting, and staying mildly activated for far longer than you actually realize. The book is offering a very different direction and approach for us to look at that. It talks about embodiment as praxis, a conscious and sustained engagement with yourself and your community that basically resists the fragmentation that happens with social media. It names body Sabbaths, phone free periods, intuitive movement, mirror meditations, breath work, collective somatic practices as ways that you can reclaim the bodily presence as sacred, political, and communal. And the reason why I love it is because it's a reminder, even to me, that the answer is not only use less social media, because that sounds like an easy fix. Sometimes the answer is deeper than that. Sometimes the answer is come back to your body on purpose with a purpose. Ask your soldiers, what are they carrying right now? Ask your jaw, what has it been holding on to? Ask your sleep, what has been interrupted by? Ask your chest whether it has had enough room to breathe. And then ask your body whether it feels like home or whether it has become another site of performance. Because if your social media has been training you out of your body, then healing has to be included in the retraining that you do for your return. So we're going to take another break. And I want to dig a little bit deeper and really get into dealing with the mirror in relationship to this concept. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone, to the episode. And we are going to talk about the mirror. So, the chapter in Rooted in Resilience on the mirror is one of the strongest parts of the book for this conversation that we're having today, because it talks about the mirror being more than just glass. It is really a threshold. It says in a world that teaches us to size up, judge, and reject, the different forms of who we are, it tells us that the mirror can become the site for good or for bad. It could possibly become the place where self hatred is driven, especially in economies built on envy, aspiration, and perfectionism. But it also says that the mirror becomes a sacred altar. It is also the place where compassion interrupts those damaging storylines. And that's exactly what, unfortunately, social media intensifies. So, social media is not just a feed that you're going through, it's thousands of mirrors that are happening all at once throughout the day. And most of them, if we're being honest, are distorted. You're not meeting people in the fullness of who they are. Let's be real. People are not giving you the lowlights. Most people are giving you the highlights, and you are using those as ways for you to compare yourself. What you're meeting is their angles, the editing, the branding, the best lighting, the best timing, captions, etc., the strategic disclosures, right? And I say that as a person who has content that's on social media. I usually am going to do something to my face before I get on here, right? I'm giving you the structured part of me. If you don't stay conscious of what you're interacting with, your body starts responding to these curated images, not realizing that they are not reality. You're comparing your face to someone else's face that's filtered. You're comparing your body to someone else's body that's been posed. You're creating or comparing your career to someone else's announcement. All you have is the announcement, no details. You're comparing your home to someone else's reveal. And God forbid you compare your healing to someone else's polished language. Your actual life, which includes fatigue, mess, stress, bills, inconsistencies, and all the full humanity that we go through with being alive, to someone else's presentable frame that they put out there for you. That is not a fair fight. That is not a fair comparison. That is apples and oranges being compared. And I would say it this way, it's a setup. People internalize this all the time. They think, I'm behind, or why don't I look like that? Or why can't I be more disciplined or more beautiful, more successful? Why am I not as emotionally evolved as Dr. Malika, more aesthetically put together, right? As whatever the social media content creator is that you follow. Let me let you in on a secret, right? I am emotionally evolved to a certain point, but I still have evolution that still needs to happen. A lot of times when I'm doing these episodes, I am preaching to myself on areas that I have identified that I too still need to do work on, right? The book says something powerful in response to this, to the whole internal spiral that can sometimes happen within us. It says that when you look with compassion into the mirror, that is how you begin to change these damaging storylines that have been tattooed onto the collective consciousness. It is basically saying that the practice of not only looking, but staying there, breathing with our reflection is a radical sense of behavior. It's a radical practice. It is something that is so important because the comparison culture has trained you to look at yourself harshly and to look at others with aspiration. What we are saying is that you're not going to be the critiques of your own humanity. We're not going to allow social media continue to do that. That once that happens, you have now outsourced your self-worth. I am asking you to bring the self-worth back to where it belongs. You can feel better even when you don't have to post it on social media. It doesn't matter what's visible to others. You don't have to feel like you're performing or on a stage. You will start to learn how to measure the real you and how to make sure that you are reinforced by the things that are real, tangible in your life. And you have to stop allowing social media to control these things because that's too much power for us to hand over to a simple platform, especially because self-worth is just like it says. It's self-worth. It wasn't meant for you to crowdsource. It wasn't something that you were meant to give to other people. So again, for Black people, especially Black women, this is the part of the conversation that gets a little bit loaded because our image is never just our image. We're often entangled in things like colorism, the desirability politics, beauty standards, anti-Blackness, respectability. What are we acceptable with doing and not doing? Our bodies are being surveilled. The pressure to remain presentable in a world that has always wanted to distort what is beautiful about us. So when social media intensifies beauty culture, it's not just happening on this blank ground and this blank canvas. It's happening in a social world that already has been taught and taught many of us to negotiate who we are and our visibility carefully. It's not about vanity. It's about negotiating our dignity. This is about whether or not your reflection belongs to you or whether it has been colonized by outside standards. And this is also about whether or not your worth is something that's steady enough within you that it can survive a day with bad scrolling. That it's about whether or not you know how to look at yourself with grace, even after an algorithm has told you otherwise. The chapter in the book is offering you a practice that I think belongs right here in this conversation. It stands, or it says to stand in front of the mirror, soften your gaze, look not to assess, but to recognize, and say your name out loud, and then affirm to yourself, I made it. I see you. I am still here. That may sound simple, but it's just as profound. And it is a profound interruption to a culture that very much thrives off of self rejection. Here's the truth I want you to embody. Some of us do not need another image strategy. We don't need to curate what we look like online. We need to come back to ourselves and do a return to the humanity that has been present and that is always with us. We're going to take a break. And then when we come back, we are going to go into our Aya pause for this episode. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone, to the episode. And before we get deeper into this, I do want to shout out our WDJY listeners in the great city of Atlanta, Georgia. And I want to shout out and tell you about the giveaway that is specifically for you all. We are doing a WDJY giveaway. It is for the first 4 episodes of season 4. And so this is the 3rd episode, and we are giving away to 4 winners during this time. And the screen is showing you the link that you need to go to be able to submit. So what you have to do is show proof of subscribing either on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other of the places where the show is at. Show that you have subscribed and you upload the proof of that, and then we'll throw your name into the wheel and we will select who is our winner. All right. So the link that you need to go to is bit.ly/WDJY spring giveaway. And WDJY is all caps, spring is capitalized, and giveaway is also capitalized. So make sure that you go and give yourself a chance to win. So you're like, what can I win? Glad you asked. So I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm wearing one of our t-shirts. And this one says healing loudly and living softly, the Aya way. You can win a t-shirt. We have hoodies. We have a lot of different merch. You get to pick which one you want. You can win your own copy of the book. We also have custom blended teas that you can win. You get to pick what it is as your choice of prize. If you are the person that wins, we will go off of what you have chosen to be able to use or be able to have as your gift. So this is open to the WDJY listeners. All right, so let's go into our Aya pause for this episode. And I want us to talk about reclaiming ourselves from the scroll. All right, so let's pause here if you can. I want you to put your phone down for a second. We're not going to do it for forever. This is just for right now. Take one full breath in and then release it slowly. Take another in and release it slowly. And now we're going to do one more. Take another breath in and release it slowly. Now ask yourself gently, what happens in my body when I have been online for too long? Do I feel tense, hollow, agitated, numb, self-critical, rushed, or weirdly disconnected from myself? What do I start believing about myself after a long day of scrolling? Do I feel behind? Do I feel less attractive? Do I feel less accomplished? Do I feel less grounded? Do I feel like I need to change myself to be legible, desirable, or enough? Now ask yourself a different question. What brings me back to myself? What helps me feel safe and seen in my own skin? What helps me return to my body without performance? What helps me look at myself with compassion instead of critique? The Aya pause in the chapter on the body in the book has a pause that says, how have I inherited disconnection from my body and how might I return? This question is saying that your body is not a battlefield, it's your sanctuary, it's your temple, it's the sacred text. There's another iapause in this chapter that asks, what practices help me feel both safe and seen in my skin? This is reminding us that we do not have to love our body all at once to begin listening again. This is where I want to close today with return. I want us to do it with the return, no shame. Don't delete everything and disappear. That's not the answer. That's nuclear response. We're not doing that. Not saying to yourself, you should know you should know better. This is simply returning. Return to a more honest relationship with your body, with your mind. Notice what the scroll is costing you. Return to boundaries that are humane and not performative. And return to mirrors that are telling you the truth in a gentle way, not the way the algorithm does. Return to those rituals that are going to help you remember that you're a person, you're not a product. And that may mean creating a phone-free first hour in your morning. It may mean not taking your phone into the bedroom, which means it's in a different room. It may mean turning off these not essential notifications. It could mean a weekly body Sabbath, meaning your phone is off, movement is intuitive, and your nervous system gets to stop performing response. Another way this could look for you is a mirror practice where you greet yourself before you greet the internet. Ask yourself before every scroll, what am I actually looking for right now? Go inward, be intuitive, identify what you need in that moment. Because sometimes what you're looking for is not information, it may be comfort. Maybe it's a distraction or validation or escape. Once you know what you're actually seeking and you can put language to it, you can choose more honestly whether or not that platform is going to give you what you actually need in that moment. So here's the truth I want you to leave with as we walk out of this iapause. Your body is not failing because it gets overwhelmed by too much stimulation. Your mind is not weak because comparison affects you. Your self-worth isn't shallow just simply because digital life bruises it. You're living in a world that's designed to monetize your attention, intensify aspirations, and keep you distracted and disconnected and coming back even when it hurts you. So the healing work is not just about willpower. It's about discernment, noticing what's happening, creating the boundaries, having compassion for yourself, and remembering that your value does not rise or fall with your visibility. Your body is sacred, even when the culture treats it like content. Remember that your reflection first belongs to you and you alone, and then it goes out after that. So we're going to take another break, and then we are going to come back and we are going to close out this episode for this week. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back to the IOA. And again, we thank you for being on this journey with us for the episode. We definitely want to have our call to action. So, again, just a reminder that we need you to interact with, like, share, subscribe to the podcast on all of the platforms that, number one, lets the algorithm know that this is content that people want to see and want to hear more. And it also allows you to get notified when the episodes go live. I love to see it on my phone when I'm out and about. The reminder that the episode is going to premiere soon on YouTube. So I even get the alerts because clearly I have subscribed to the episodes on the different platforms. So we want that for you as well. Your weekly reminders of here's your resource to keep you going to be able to go that way. The other thing that I want to remind you of is that we have a lot of different ways for us to hear from you. Number one, we have our SpeakPipe account, which allows you to leave voicemails, and you have the opportunity for your voicemails to be used and featured on an episode. So we want to hear from you. The link is on the screen. You can go to www.speakpipe.com/the IOA. And we want to be able to hear your testimonies, your questions, your feedback, your comments, etc. We also have the Substack community, which is put together in order to give accompanying and a companion to the episodes every week. So it's the ioa.substack.com. And that's where you can interact with all the other ancillary materials that are put forth for the episodes. Just a reminder to our WDJY listeners that your spring giveaway is still going on. It is a way for you to get materials as a reward for you listening and subscribing to the show regularly. So you would need to go to one of the social media platforms. Can't do it through the radio station. Can't do it that way. You're going to have to go online, and you'll need to go to the form bit.ly/WDJY, all capital, spring giveaway. Spring and giveaway are both capitalized. And that is a way for you to submit to be entered into a raffle. I don't want to take for granted that you all have the book. So I want you to know that you can buy the book on my website. It is MalikaMBrown.com/store/P/rooted in resilience. And then we also have our Shopify store, which allows you to be able to go into the Shopify store and purchase items as well. The book is there as a secondary item. If you would like to get your t-shirts, if you want to get your hoodies, your tea, you can go to the Shopify store, get all your Aya gear, get all your materials that you need for your wellness journey. And that is the link that is on the screen. It will also be in the show notes so where you can click it. It is the-aya-shop-2, the number 2, .myshopify.com. And so I just want to thank you for spending this time with me with the IOA podcast. If this episode spoke to you, please send it to someone who has been feeling the weight of digital life in their bodies, their self-talk, and their spirit. Don't forget the call to action that I've given to you to subscribe. Leave a review. That is also helpful. Share this episode with a friend, a sister, a brother, the colleague, the student, caregiver, or a leader who has been trying to stay grounded in a world that profits from them being disoriented. And as we continue to move through this week, I want you to remember this. You do not have to surrender your nervous system to the scroll. You do not have to hand your reflection over to comparison. You do not have to let the algorithm narrate what your self-worth is. Come back to your breath. Come back to your bodies. Come back to your name. And lastly, come back to yourself. Until next week when we get back together, make sure that you do the work so you can stay rooted, live a life that's rooted so that you can heal loudly and live softly. Have a great rest of your week. This is the IOA Podcast, a space for truth, tenderness, and becoming whole, one breath at a time. Make sure to like and subscribe.